It's very simple. Your dreams should be real. What we find is most people stop dreaming once they start living that life, whether it's, oh, well, we're traveling, or I got the business, I got the life, I got the kids, I got this. And then they stop dreaming. But if you were to dream today, not the dream you had when you were a kid, or the dream you had when you got out of college, or the dream you had when you got married, if you picked your dream today, what would it be? And why isn't it a reality right now?
So friends, I have yet another guest that I cannot wait to have a conversation with. I was on this podcast not too long ago, and the host of the show, he was asking me a question. He was like a brother from another mother. I mean, we were having so much fun. We were chasing rabbits every which way. We were talking about how to impact business owners' lives. And when we got done with that call, I went back and I told my team, I need to have him on our show. Our audience needs to be introduced to the one, the only, Jerome Myers. How are you, sir?
Phenomenal, man. It's so good to spend some more time with you, Justin. I mean, I've been thinking about our conversation on Your Next since that day. And I was like, man, how could I come across as impressive as Goodbread? And then you released that phenomenal episode about being yourself. And I think that was probably the last episode before you guys switched over the focus of the podcast. But man, thank you so much for having me on, man. It's good to be with you.
Buddy, I'm looking forward to this. I have no doubt that you're going to be yourself. I saw that within you, and I know the character of the person, friends. That's on the other side of the microphone. Those of you watching us on YouTube, you can see the character of the person. Let me tell you, it's going to be fire. So Jerome, before we dive into, the business side, tell me about who is Jerome Myers. Tell me your story, a little bit about your family, hobbies. Just kind of give us a quick overview on who you are.
Yeah, I mean, at the base, I'm the son of a soldier and a stay-at-home mom. Grew up in Fayetteville, North Carolina. Spent a lot of time trying to figure out what I was going to be when I was growing up. I told my mom I wanted to be a garbage man when I was 4 or 5 in the yard. And Lonnie came down the street hanging off the back of the truck, and he made garbage collection art. Man, he hopped off and he would flip the top off the lid. It would spin around like a quarter fall flat. He'd do a little pirouette, dump the trash in the back of the truck, and then he'd pull the lever like every kid wants to experience. And I would go crazy. And I looked at my mom that day. I was like, Mommy, I want to be a garbage man. She said, baby, you got to do something that's going to allow you to provide for your family. She said, don't you like your Nikes and your Guess jeans and that Dockers t-shirt you got on? I said, yeah. She said, well, as a garbage man, you probably won't be able to do that for you and your family. And I said, yeah, but Lonnie gets home at like 3:00 every day and he can play with the kids, and Daddy doesn't come home till after dark sometimes and he can't play with me. And, I was just explaining life through my eyes as a 4-year-old. And she said, yeah, but you got this, you got that, you got this. And, all that innocence was being sucked out of me, because it was like, well, you got to make money. You don't have to do what you're passionate about, or, it's not about seeking or chasing purpose. It's not about making art. And so that didn't come back up until high school. And I was talking to my physics teacher. I said, hey, Mr. Ayers, do you think I should be a psychologist or an engineer? Because I'm good at math and science and I like solving people problems. He's like, well, there's very different starting salary for those two professions. And I said, well, which one pays more? And he's like, oh, well, engineering pays more. And so I went to engineering school, Justin, played football 4 years, got out, started working for the power company, got into management consulting. And my last role in corporate, I built a $20 million division for Fortune 550. January 13th, it was me and one other person. By the end of September, we had 175 folks working on the team. And then by the end of the year, we had 30% profit margins. And I got a phone call on December 24th, and it was something like this. Hey, man, we're going to lay half the team off. I was like, what? Like, yeah, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, yeah, that's not the right answer. And we went back and forth for a while until he hung up on me and told me he'd see me in the new year. And there was just something about that, the buck not stopping with me, that made me realize like I truly wanted to be an entrepreneur. Because, you can build an 8-figure business, but if it's not yours, you might have a nice salary, but there's something with being a final decision maker. Forget the ownership and the equity. There's something about being a final decision maker. And the next year came around. I promised myself while I was going through that I'd never do that again. And I saw that the same thing was getting ready to happen. So I dropped out of corporate and started in this consulting space. Started, my first client was my financial advisor. He hung around for 10 years. He's now a managing director or managing partner at Northwestern Mutual. And we've helped people double their business, double their time off, double their charitable giving over and over again. And there came a point where I was like, does this even matter anymore? And because it didn't matter how much money we got them, Justin, they always wanted more. And I said, okay, what if we help people who are exiting their businesses, people who are having 8, 9, 10-figure exits? What if we help them figure out what's next? And I was like, I started pulling on a thread, and then I ended up in the back of a business conference. This guy was given his 7-step plan to a double unicorn exit. How precocious is that, right? It just sounds ridiculous when you think about it. Yep. And he's going through it, and he gets to a point, and he's like, I was thinking of drinking, and I told my wife I was going to In-N-Out Burger to get a burger, and she told me to get a job application. And then he went on to say, I was having an existential crisis. And so when Q&A time came around, I got the box. I said, hey, man, are you ready? He was like, I don't know what you're starting out like that, but go ahead. I said, well, how'd you get out of your crisis? He said, I'll let you know when I do. I said, how'd you know you were having a crisis? He said, my wife told me, like every other self-aware husband gets told. And I said, uh-oh, we got a problem. And so that problem we call the founder's exit paradox. And it is what happens when you exit a business and everything's supposed to be grand and amazing. You just hit the lottery for all intents and purposes, but you feel this sense of loss. You feel like you have no purpose. You don't know what you're supposed to do when you get up. And it's something that if you're not a serial entrepreneur or somebody who's done a lot of work, you experience in a very real and deep way. And I've totally dedicated my life to solving this problem, man, because I think entrepreneurs, founders are such amazing people. And in spite of all the stuff that they go through, to sell your business and be miserable is just not the appropriate outcome. And so it's our goal to help people exit to excellence.
Wow. There's a lot to unpack there, a lot to unpack. So I want to go back to, you made the statement in passing, I want to chase my purpose. And then you talked about it whenever you're talking about your high school teacher, your purpose thing came up. And then as you went through the executive world, the purpose that then came up. I believe, and you and I both are people of faith. I believe that purpose is also ultimately inspiration. Inspiration is a term that means God breathed. And I believe that God puts a purpose in each one of us. I believe that on my heart. I know you share that same commonality, which is why I love chatting with you. How does somebody ultimately discover their purpose?
Yeah. It's through action. A lot of folks think that they're going to go in the woods and find it, or go backpacking or traveling through Europe or scuba diving in the Caribbean. I hear all of this stuff that people do or try when they exit. The fact of the matter is it's inside of you. And sometimes you need a third party observer to help pull it out of you through some direct and intense questioning. But at core, what I think it always breaks down to is a certain group of people that you've been placed on this planet to support or help, and a specific problem that those folks have. For me, it's founders who have exited and don't know what they're going to do next in their life. And if I can help them understand who their people are and what problem they are to solve for them, we can make a world of difference. For you, can be a bunch of different things, but it's always internal. You don't go find it because it's inside of you, and it's really about remembering.
So you're exposing a dirty little secret. We talk about it at Exit Planning Institute that, I teach there, and that is this. And here's the statistic. And I want to dive into this dirty little secret. The statistic is only 4% of business owners who exit their company are, quote, happy. You might use the word fulfilled there, inspired, don't have their identity tied to the company. Whatever stat you want to put there, the number is 96% of business owners who leave their company have deep regret. So that's the quote, dirty little secret that you're exposing. And I think the way you said it was, selling your business won't make you happy. It's not about getting out from underneath the pressure. It's about coming back to fulfillment. So we've got business owners who are on the phone. Listen to us on the radio. They've heard me for years. Some are new to the show, but they understand that ultimately they're in this business and there's more to life than this business.
Mm-hmm.
How do they determine, Jerome, if while they're still going through this exit, while they're looking at the exit in front of them, they're saying, okay, I know how to get out of this company. How do they start thinking about this next act, this life after business? What's a framework or some sort of a thought pattern that we can walk them through?
Yeah. So we wrote a book and released it in December of 23 called Your Next. And it's a 4-step framework for figuring out what comes after your exit. It's the guide to finding fulfillment after your exit. And so it starts with nourishing. So what we found is most founders don't spend any time thinking about the journey that they've been on. It's always future. It's always done. Yep. What's next? Instead of actually taking inventory of the experiences, seeing how they've uniquely prepared them for the thing that's upcoming. And so you want to spend time actually taking a pause and reflecting on what you've been through and how it's transferable into other places. The E is for evaluate. And when you're evaluating, you're looking for the different avenues that you can apply your experience against. A lot of people think that, oh, I've been doing this 15, 30, 45 years. This is all that I can do. This is all that I'm good at. And the fact of the matter is the skills that you've cultivated over that time, because being an entrepreneur is a spiritual experience, whether people want to admit it or not. It's a refining process. And so those skills that you develop, the relationships, the network that you build, those things all come together to put you in a great position to have a ton of success and be able to apply those skills against problems that you might not think are your problem in the beginning. The X is for explore, right? So now that you've evaluated the different options, you want to explore the potential paths that you can go down in order to execute and solve those problems for those people. Sometimes those people aren't going to be aggregated in a place, right? Pre-exit founders aren't aggregated in a place right now. Even post-exit founders, I'm seeing a few communities pop up, but I don't see a large gathering of those folks where you can just come and say, oh yeah, I can help you with that problem that you're struggling with. And so you want to explore how you actually find the people or gather the people that you're serving and how you the delivery mechanism for helping them with the problem that they have. And then the last one is transcend. Once you explore, you figure out what you're going to do, how you're going to do it. Then you want to fully step into it. You want to systematize it. You want to prioritize it. You want to refine it. You want to optimize it to get to the place where this thing is happening with predictability from a time frame standpoint and a result standpoint. Because at the end of the day, your ability to make a promise to somebody who's in trouble is the magic. It's what they're looking for. It's the certainty that they need.
So next is an acronym for nourish, evaluate, explore, and transcend. Friends, I don't know if you're hearing this the way I'm hearing this, and maybe it's because of where my ears are right now, Jerome, with my own life. And you've heard a little bit of the podcast, but behind that podcast that you referenced earlier, for those of you who haven't listened, I put a podcast out there talking about my faith, and my wife and I are stepping into a different position in our life than we ever dreamed of possible. And what happened, Jerome, in our life, and I think this is apropos for what you're talking about. I love your take on this. You know, we had just exited a company. I'd sold my own baby, if you will, so that we had scaled rapidly. The company who bought it, I stepped into the president role, worked really hard in a corporate environment as the president, doubled that value of that company from mid eight figures to low 9 figures, doubled the value in 18 months, and then was bought by a huge firm. And honestly, I'm kind of floundering at this point in my life. Like, what's next? You know, funds were there, health is there, thank God for those. Family is there, thank God. Friends are there, faith is all there, and all my 5 F's I talk about, my faith, family, friends, fitness, and finances are all kind of aligned at this age of 46 at that particular time. And I'm trying to decide on what's next. And my coaches walked me through the exact process after the fact. But I floundered for 24 months, dude. Mm-hmm. For 24 months, I floundered. Mm-hmm. And it was like some days, and I don't talk about this openly, but I think you understand. I'd love your take on this. Some days, dude, I didn't want to get out of bed. Mm-hmm. Not that I regretted selling my previous company, but it's like, what's next? I literally made this statement to my wife one day. I said, I just guess God's done with me. I guess this is it. I guess now I just go sit on the beach. And she said, Justin, you're 46, you're 45 years old. Shut up, get out of the house. And I'm sitting with my coaches and they're walking me through this process of evaluate, explore, and transcend. Not your exact words, but I remember seeing this and it came down to literally 2 days of self-realization. And I was like, holy cow, I can take the last 30 years of my life and I can go out and impact a lot of people now.
A whole lot.
Is that what you see whenever you're walking people through this before the exit?
Yeah.
Because that's whenever you should do it.
Well, yeah. The problem with before the exit is most people aren't humble enough to acknowledge the fact that they're going to have some struggle, right? Because you've been working towards this goal for however long it took you to get here. And so it's like, oh no, I'm going to get everything I want when I get there. The issue with that is most people don't actually realize that Maslow's hierarchy of needs, money only impacts the bottom 2 rungs, right?
Yep.
The top 3, they aren't touched with money, right? And so the problems that you have are top 3, or it's level 6, which isn't even on the pyramid, which is transcendence, which is helping other people, right? And that's the only way you have impact. So the 5 F's is a very interesting framework. It's one that we hear people reference a lot. We offer 6 because we think about it just a little bit differently. And so what I humbly submit to you, Justin, is to consider this: self-image, relationships, work, health, prosperity, and significance. We call those the 6 centers of doubt, right? Okay. And so post-exit, these are the things that you're going to struggle with at different levels of intensity at different points on the journey. What you've done, and it happens in sequence, what you've done is you've moved through all of those and you're at level 6 now. And you're just like, okay, where's my impact? What makes my life matter? Because it's not the company, because the title isn't what made you important or special, right? It was a role that you played in the world. But so
let's walk through that. Well, let's walk through the 6 though, Jerome, because I think you laid them off really fast, but let's walk through them in order of the way somebody's going to internalize this. I want to go deeper. Okay.
Yeah.
So the first one was I was trying to write fast. Self-image. Walk through that. What does that mean?
So people think about in this way. It's like, well, who am I without the company? That is what it is, right? And if you don't separate your identity from the company, you will walk around feeling like your identity is gone because the company's gone. Period. Point blank.
You're right.
It is what it is. If you introduce yourself as the founder of, or president at, or CEO, or whatever other title you've been given related to your business, you're going to be in trouble. There is no if, and, or buts about it. But if you're Justin Goodbread, you're out in the woods, you help business owners from time to time grow and scale their business, you're a loving husband, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You're all of these other things that aren't related to the business. When the business goes away, sure, you'll feel a little bit of pain, but it is not the end all be all for you, right? And that's where most people stop, right? And I'm so sick of hearing people hide behind headcount and revenue because they believe that people aren't going to ask them about anything else as it relates to success if those 2 things are bigger than whatever they can say in response to it, right?
That's powerful. Wow. Very well said. I agree 100% with you.
Go to level 2, relationships. And so let me go back to 1-1. So you got to fix a relationship with yourself, right? Your self-image is all about you and your relationship with yourself. And if that's not right, the other levels don't matter because you're going to crumble on a weak foundation. Once you fix a relationship with yourself, then you can move to level 2, which is relationships. And so this is family, friends in your model. And what we believe is like, there's 5 people that you spend the most time with. And people are like, oh yeah, you're going to be the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. We think about it differently. We think you're the average of the 5 people's expectations that you spend the most time with. And those 2 things are different. There can be a person who's not an 8-figure net worth individual today who's going to be one because that's what they expect out of life. Before you were worth what you're worth, you expected to be that. That's why you got to where you got to. There are people who are working towards a thing, and there are people who have things and they aren't working towards it, and they're going to go the other way. But the expectations is the difference maker. I get in workshops. I have a room full of folks who own businesses, and I pull out our 2C matrix and I was like, I fill this out. And then we get to the end of it. And I was like, okay, so how many of these people because we only talk about 5. How many of these 5 people are related to your business? And 90% of the time, 3 out of the 5 people are in the business. And then the other person is their spouse. And then they've got a friend outside of work. That's a real friend and not a deal friend. And so I said, okay, so now you sell your business. Those 3 people are gone because you don't have business to talk about anymore because you're not in business. They're probably still left behind. What do you do when 60% of your relationships vanish? And they kind of look at me confused. I'm like, well, what are you going to do? Or do you have other people around you?
Yeah.
And that for people creates a void because now it's like, oh, well, I had a good relationship with my partner when I was only seeing them 3 hours a week or 2 hours a day. And now I see them all the time. We don't really know each other. We don't really like the same things. And I'm invading their space. I'm cramping their style. I got to do something different. And they want me to do something different. And then the friend, they probably not exiting from their business at the same time you're exiting from your business. So they're not around either. And so you sit around as a lonely exited founder and you're like, well, nobody can go play golf with me. If you're a golf person, like, what do I do? And so some people go play around the golf in the morning and then they're day drinking from 12 on. And if that's your mission, your goal, great. But for me, that's not the answer. And so, cause it doesn't get to any impact. But you want to figure out the 5. And one of my favorite things to do is to pick with people a little bit. And this is going to take us to level 6, but we're going to stay here at 2 right now. I like to pick people because they're like, hey, I don't have 5 people unless I say my spouse and my kids. I'm like, yeah, kids and spouse probably all go together. But if you want to separate, you can do kids and spouse. I still need 3 more. Well, they tell me, well, I don't have 3 more. It's like, well, that's not true. Go through your phone, see who you interact with the most. And you're like, yeah, I still don't have 5. Okay, great. So who's going to carry your casket when you pass away? Because you need 6.
Yep.
Who's your 6? And they don't have a way out of it at that point. And so we'll come back to who your 6 are later, but that's relationships. We move up to work. So we've been placed here to serve. Period, point blank. And so it's a matter of who we serve and what problem we help them with. Your business, you probably figured it out, but I'll be honest with you, that wasn't your purpose. It wasn't your passion. You probably stumbled into a way to make money and you figured out how to make more money with it. And you probably started asking yourself, well, how do I stop doing this? Because this is how I pay for my life. And then you get to a place where you can exit. And now you are in a place where you have control over your time. You have control over your money and you have control over your energy. Right. Most people don't actually understand that those are the resources that you truly are fiduciary over. And we'll come back to that at level 5 when we talk about prosperity. But just know that when you get to the place where work is optional, that you actually have to find a place to serve if you want to experience fulfillment. So what does that look like? You got an extra 40, 60, 100 hours a week, depending on how hard you run. What does that look like? And for a lot of people, the answer is, I don't know. And that's why you need to work through the next process in order to figure out what that next thing is. Health is the next one. We do health before prosperity because most people sacrifice their health in order to get prosperity. Then they give their prosperity back to try to find health. For us, we put health at level 4 because those first 3 levels we talked about, self-image, relationship, and work, is where all your stress is. And so if you're stressed out, if you haven't figured out how to turn the stress down, you're going to do things that negatively impact your health to take the edge off. I just need to take the edge off, Justin. I've never heard that be meditate. I've never seen anybody say, oh, I'm going to go exercise because I'm trying to take the edge off. It's always something negative. It's always something that's detrimental to their body. So we want to figure out how to turn the stress down, and then we can do the higher order things, meditate, exercise, hydrate, be on a great diet, that kind of stuff in order to take health to the next level. And you're going to need
So let me pause for a second. So we have self-image. We got to take care of ourselves first. Mm-hmm. Once we take care of our self-image and our relationship with ourselves, we then move to our relationship with either the 5 people who set the expectations or the 6 people who are going to carry our casket. Mm-hmm. And we're going to build on that here in number 5. Then we go to our work, and the work is whenever we reach optionality, where you're not required to go to work to make money. Now you're thinking differently. How do I use work for fulfillment? How do I use work for impact? Then as you get those 3 self-internalized things, things, then your health is coming about, which is physical, mental, spiritual, things of that nature at this point of our conversation. Am I with you so far?
You are dead on.
Sweet. Okay. I'm sorry. I'm making sure I'm following you here. So we're at health now.
Yeah.
What's number 5?
Prosperity. So we don't say
Prosperity.
wealth, we say prosperity.
Now, why? Why do you use the word prosperity versus wealth?
Prosperity encompasses time, talent, treasures, right? If you go to the book, time, talent, treasure is a game. Sometimes we switch out talent and call it energy because we think it is a better description than just our talent, right?
Yeah.
So, I think everybody understands treasure, right? That's money. That's assets, right? I think most people understand time. I don't think most people understand that time is the only non-renewable resource and it's more valuable than money, but they don't understand that, right? But there's time. And then there's talent or energy. This was something that came up in the middle of a workshop. I had a guy that runs a gym. And he was like, there's another thing. And he was like, health is, the ultimate wealth. I'm like, yeah, okay, great. And I went back and thought about it. I was like, there's a lot of people, especially financial advisors, that run around and say, hey, I'm a fiduciary. Great. You're a fiduciary. So that means that you're going to do things in the financial and best interest of your client. Okay, great. So let's be clear. You just got an 8 or 9 figure windfall. You are work optional. Your most valuable resource, time, you can do whatever you want with it now because you don't have to trade it for money. You have enough money so that you can do what you want to make things come to life. And you have your energy because we're at level 5, you're healthy. So if you're a fiduciary, because now you're a resource allocator, you've elevated from a worker to a resource allocator because that's what we truly are, right? We are a manager over the resources. So you're allocating resources. If you're a fiduciary, can you actually look at your calendar and say that you allocated those resources well? Because most people can't. Most people wake up and they waste it. And the funny part about it is you don't know how much is left in the tank. You have no idea how much time is left in the bank. So you're not making the most of it. You're not getting close to the creator if that's your space. You're not making sure that you're investing that time with the people you care for most. One of my affirmations is, I travel the world with the people I care for most, doing things that make us smile from the inside out. For me, that is the ultimate demonstration. I'm taking you on a journey for you to experience things that you've not experienced before. And I'm doing it with great company in a space where our experiences are expanded, right? Wow. Are you actually a fiduciary or does it just sound good? Because the worst thing that can happen before we go to level 6, the worst thing that can happen if you believe that you get to a place and you're judged is you get there and they're going through your calendar. They're going through your account and the way you allocated the resources. They're looking at the way you use your energy. And the judge says, that's the best you could come up with. You found your freedom and that's the best you could come up with.
That is so convicting. And I was talking with somebody the other day. And I said, I'm not in a race against anybody else. I'm in a race against Justin yesterday and the Justin that God's designed me to be. Mm-hmm. And the last thing I want to do, and I realize we're talking about prosperity in the sense of time, talent, and treasure, but the last thing I want to do, my man, is to meet Jesus one day and him show me the picture of who Justin could have been versus who Justin actually was.
That's right.
And that delta between those two is where I think the tears are going to flow in heaven. Yep. That delta between the two of how we settle for less than God's best. Now I know I'm ultra spiritual, but that's people who know me. I'm a believer. So I think the saddest thing for me, and I think you're honing in on it right now, and I think it's so powerful, friends, if we listen to what Jerome's unpacking is that I often say God has a mission and vision for your life. But in that mission or vision, he has ultimate greatness. He has designed you uniquely and wonderfully made. He has a position that is seated in heaven that one day we're going to see what he truly had for us. And oftentimes, Jerome, I don't think we get to the number 5 because we're so stuck on number 1 and number 2. And I think I never thought about the way you're building this. I can't wait to hear number 6. But this idea around prosperity, your time, your talent is so convicting to me personally. at this stage of the chapter in our life. So I know you're preaching right now. You're preaching to the choir. You're just landing bullets right or hitting me left to right about to underneath this table, man. Because I don't know if I can handle number 6.
Yeah, you can, because you're on it. And I tried to get right here because this is where you are. Significance. Right? This is transcendence. If you think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, this is legacy. If you think about things in the traditional way that people talk about this, but this is about how you made the lives of other people better. Because that is the only way to find fulfillment. It's the only way. It doesn't matter how much money you get. If you go look at a eulogy, I worked on my eulogy last week, Justin. Nowhere in my eulogy did it talk about my net worth, talk about my real estate holdings, talk about the businesses I've bought, sold. None of it, right? It's not in there. None of it, right? But it will talk about the people that were impacted. The people who speak at the funeral aren't going to be the ones you made the most money for. They're going to be the ones you had the biggest impact on their lives. And that, for me, is the magic. And so if we come back and we talk about the 6, right, it's my belief that you should live a life of significance. And if you've lived a life of significance, there should be a line of people fighting for the opportunity to do that final deed for you. Right. And if you're struggling to figure out 6 people that you've impacted in a way where they stand up and carry you when you can't carry yourself, you probably missed the boat. You probably optimized for the wrong thing. It doesn't matter how much money you have. If you don't have 6 people to carry you to the final place, you're going to get the funeral home to do it. And so for me, I just want there to be a line of people where maybe you get to take a step and then somebody else shows up and they can take another step, because my impact on their life was so significant that they wanted to do me that last solid. Right. That for me is the game changer. And if I can accomplish that, then there's no way that I get to the could have been and what I was, and there's a discrepancy. And to me, that is the definition of excellence.
My mind is spinning right now. I was watching something came across my airwaves recently of a gentleman who saved hundreds of children during the World War II from Nazi Germany, hundreds of Jewish gentlemen. You may even recognize his name. I can't remember off the top of my head right now, but he was brought in. It was the late 80s, early 90s. He's brought into a big position, a big arena, or if you will, a stadium, whatever it may be, a theater. And as people began leaning into him, they were telling his story. You saved me. And then someone said, anybody who this man saved, or anybody whose man's impacted, please stand up. The entire room stood up. We're talking hundreds of people stood up. And Jerome, what you're leaning into in number 6 is exactly that. That if we focus on, as this world has a tendency to do, if we focus on the next million, I realize the show's Decamillionaire Decoded. I get it. And if you go back to listen to the foundation message, friends, it's not about the money. It never is. It's about the life of impact, life of purpose, just reaching that vision. And Jerome, I don't think I've ever heard anybody articulate these 6 steps in such clarity, such compassion, and such impact that has hit me the way it just did. So let me first of all say thank you.
Thank
the way
you.
You just presented that. Number 2, if somebody's listening to the show right now and they're like, dude, I don't know. I don't know where I'm at, but I know something's not right. I've exited my company, because there are many that listen to our show. I've exited my company, and I'm now, first of all, how do they reach you? Well, second of all, what should they do?
Yeah. So what should they do? They should raise their hand and say, I don't know. I think the ego of the founder, the person who's smart enough to figure this stuff out, is one to say, oh, well, I'll figure it out. It can't be that complicated. I did this, I did that. You can't read the label while you're in the jar. You can't. Yep. And so having an independent observer go along with you on that journey of figuring out what the thing is, what you've been placed here for, is something that's really valuable. And so, we've got a ton of stuff on our website, blogs, yep, assessments, white papers that can help people get educated for free. And then there's the podcast. We've got close to 400 episodes on that. Then if you want to go deeper after you've done some assessments and gotten a report that makes suggestions for you without us ever talking to you, and you can decide whether or not you're doing those things, or you can decide if you know how to do those things, then we can take you deep in what we call the next intensive. The next intensive is very simple. It's 2 calls. They're 2 hours apiece. The first 2 hours, I interview the person that I'm talking, that raised their hand, and we get a comprehensive set of data on how they got to where they are. This is part of the nourish process. If they haven't nourished, this is going to nourish them. And then we come back about a week or so later, and we spend 2 hours talking to them about them. We go through a 35-page report that in it has a sentence that says, these are your people. This is a problem you should solve for the people. And based on this delivery model, we think you can make this much money doing it, because I think everybody wants to know that there's value and they feel like a transaction equates to value. So we put that in there. We don't really care about that part. We care about the first part, the people and the problem, and a strategy to go from where they are now to doing that. And they got choices after that, man. They can go do it with their team if they've already got a team together. They can do it by themselves if they want to do it in solitude, or for a very small group of folks, we will go on that journey with them and help them transcend into that new space. We don't know of anybody else in the country doing what we do. We believe in it wholeheartedly. We've helped people accomplish the things that they want to accomplish regularly. And we're not in that mode of figuring out how to make as much money as possible. The thing that we found, though, Justin, is you can make more money by serving the people you're supposed to serve, the way you're supposed to serve them, on the problem that they're struggling with more passion, with more conviction, with more excitement than you ever did doing the thing that you did in order to get to the exit. And there is no question in my heart when you're actually doing that there is no discrepancy when you get to the place of getting asked the question. There is no, is that the best you could come up with? Because for me, we struggle with comparison. It's like, oh, well, Jimbo's over there doing this and Johnny's over there doing that. And, what I'm doing isn't as impressive as that. They might be on a different journey than you. And again, if it's a headcount and revenue thing, you're probably missing a boat, because the whole point is to get free so that you can serve the people that you're supposed to serve. Like, that's my foundational belief about life. You go through this journey of solving the money problem. And then once the money problem is solved, you should do all that you can in order to help the people that you've been placed here to help with the problem that they have.
What's interesting is, I'm making a note here. What's interesting is that my coach, whenever Emily was in the hospital, we thought she was going to die.
Oh God.
She didn't. Thank God she's safe. She's healthy today. And at the time it was tough though. We didn't know she was going to live. And my coach asked me the question. He said, son, if you had unlimited time, none of us do, and if you had unlimited resources, not money, what would you do tomorrow you're not doing today? Mm-hmm. At this point, I'm highly successful, friends, running a successful business, taking 4 months off a year, making more money than I ever made in my life. And I said, I would pour, and it took me, I couldn't answer him right then. It took me about a month to be able to think about how we're going to deal with that. And I came back to him and I said, I would pour my entire life into helping the people, business owners, rapidly succeed and realize there's more to life than money, find their impact. And I would invest every other ounce of my day in my family and my friends and my faith. Mm-hmm. Drawing like me like it was yesterday. And then his exact words to me, why aren't we doing that today then? And I was like, oh, go. Because I got to tell my company all this other stuff.
He walked you down the plank. You got to jump in, man.
He drove me down the plank. They took the chainsaw out. Was fixing to cut the plank off, whether I jumped off or not. And so we sold the company, obviously went through the whole exit and all that fun stuff that everybody business owner, if you have the privilege of doing that, it is an adventure. And then literally sat at home, walking through this self-image, relationship, work, health, prosperity. And then I got stuck on the significance for almost a year and a half. Yeah. I'm just being completely authentic here with you, brother. The significance for a year and a half, I could not answer that question. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't until a dear friend made a statement, and it's like the Almighty said, boom, right there. And then I moved to my coaches and they said, how bad do you want it? How much are you willing to pay? How much are you willing to pay for this? How much are you willing to let it cost you for this? And I said, everything, but it scares the fire out of me. And my wife took her hand and she said, then we run toward it. Then we run toward it because of significance. That last word you just went over.
Yeah.
So friends, I don't know if you just heard the bomb after bomb of knowledge that was just dropped by Jerome here. But if you've never exited a company, you're going to come to a point where you realize that what he just gave was a masterclass in psychology for a business owner. What he just gave was that. If you're considering selling your company, I'm going to tell you, pick his book up. Pick his book up. He authored The Exit to Excellence, A Journey of Your Next and Your Next, if I said that right. Mm-hmm. Friends, what you just heard is real. And it's something that you're going to have to internalize at some point or another if you're on this road of exiting your company, which if you're listening to my show, you are. You're listening to my show, you're building a company to exit because you're a business owner. So let's strongly consider what he's saying. So Jerome, as we bring this thing to a close, we covered a lot of data, a lot of very valuable data. And man, I could talk to you all day long, could just listen to your brain unravel the way you do. What is the one thing that you would leave our audience with? We covered so much. What's the one thing you would say, hey, friends, listen, and then lay me some wisdom out here, brother?
Yeah, it's very simple. Your dreams should be real. What we find is most people stop dreaming once they start living that life, whether it's, oh, well, we're traveling, or I got the business, I got the life, I got the kids, I got this. And then they stop dreaming. But if you were to dream today, not the dream you had when you were a kid, or the dream you had when you got out of college, or the dream you had when you got married, if you picked your dream today, what would it be? And why isn't it your reality right now? Your dream should be real. And if you got to this part of the episode, you hung in here because there were a lot of reasons to cut it off if you didn't want to hear this. But now that you heard it, you're responsible. It's almost like getting walked down that plank that Justin's coach put him down. You can't unhear that. So if you have the resources, why aren't you doing it?
Wow. Jerome, thank you so much for your time and your wisdom today, man.
And this was a pleasure.
Powerful.
I can't wait to do it again one day. Hopefully we can get on stage somewhere together, brother.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So friends, we're going to drop all the links that Jerome mentioned. We're putting it in the show notes, the way you can connect with him through his website, his Instagram, his LinkedIn. I'm telling you, this is a powerhouse of a man. He's a powerhouse of a business leader. Whenever I heard him asking the questions on his show, and my episode was nowhere near as powerful as his just was, but when he was asking questions, I went, oh my goodness, there's a depth here that I want to know. There's a depth to this person that you can tell he's walking in his significance right now. I think you can tell that. So friends, I challenge you, following, reading his material. And if you're exiting a company, thinking about exiting a company, what he's talking about is apropos. You've got, just take it from somebody who's done 7 of them. It's just hard. Exiting a company's hard, but what he just went over is a framework that can bring you to your best life yet. We're running a race. You're running your race. I'm running mine. Jerome's running his. Let's keep our eyes on the prize in front of us. Friends, keep stepping. Until next time, y'all make it a great day.